Welcome back, and time now to squeeze in news of some new models, and as always seems to be the case these days, that involves the gradually expanding world of electric bikes. These haven't taken off massively in any world market yet, but especially not in South Africa, where there are two very obvious inhibiting factors. SA is massive. Our average riding distances are huge, and so the traditional range anxiety associated with electric vehicles is more like full-blown range paranoia for South Africans. And then of course there is the whole electricity thing, or generation thereof, which is not exactly reliable or particularly cheap anymore. And so South Africa will undoubtedly be one of the last international markets to really embrace this new technology. And so I think this new model from LiveWire is going to make virtually no impression on our local market. You may remember that LiveWire was the name given by Harley-Davidson to its first electric bike. A big electric bike, if you will, and certainly a big surprise that Harley was the first of the big manufacturers to debut such a model, given that after all they have concentrated their image and styling and technology on bikes that hail from the dim and distant past. Fair play though, we haven't ridden one yet. I don't think we're in Harley's good books, but we have talked to colleagues who've had a go and they seem genuinely impressed, albeit with the usual electric caveats about weight and range. Well, that bike, the LiveWire, although good, was expensive and undoubtedly was not the sales success that Harley-Davidson had envisaged. And along with some changes in the management at the American company, the electric side of its business was spun off not that long ago into an entirely separate entity, the whole of which was to be known now as LiveWire. Well, that business has now produced its first bike, the second model in the lineup after the original LiveWire. I'll play the promo video in the background, but it's the usual over artsy, navel-gazing codswallop that will have you screaming at them just to give you a decent look at the bike. But anyway, this is a smaller, more affordable middleweight kind of model called the Delmar. Instead of being about 600,000 Rand, this more simple offering will retail for about half that amount, somewhere in the region of 290,000 Rand. Don't worry too much about the price though. The initial limited edition run of 100 sold out within minutes of its launch, so you'll have to wait for the more cooking version that should arrive sometime next year. It's still not exactly cheap though, especially when you consider it's being supposedly aimed squarely at younger city dwellers, given its range of 160 kilometres, or more like 100 kilometres if you take it out on the open road, or ride it in the city like South Africans will. The modular construction should ensure the quicker arrival of other types of bike based on the same underpinnings, and the 80 horsepower motor and lightweight of about 190 kilos means that performance should actually be more than adequate. A bit of news from KTM now. Well, not quite news, more rumours, but since KTM dominates the off-road market in SA and is doing really well with their road bikes as well, we thought we'd help spread what seems like a very logical rumour. Currently, the Austrian brand has a significant gaping hole in its road range between the smaller 390s and the middleweight 890s, and so prepare yourself for a range of road legal models like the Duke and RC, Supermoto and the Adventure models. Prepare for them to be at a capacity about 500cc or so, in the form of a parallel twin, probably with an offset firing order like you get with the 890s, that will arrive sometime later this year, allegedly. Moving on from that, let me quickly answer a question I received on our YouTube channel recently that got me thinking. I was asked, what do I think is the most underrated bike? And well, it's two very closely related models that I think tend to fly too far under the radar given their abilities. But it's also perhaps not that surprising given that the class of bikes itself is currently the focus of so many manufacturers who seem to be engaged in a shouty kind of arms race. I am talking adventure bikes, and I am of course talking about Suzuki's V-Stroms, both the 1000 and 650, both sporting very good engines, decent chassis and excellent all-day comfort. And in the bigger bike's case, the most recent update has blessed it with a pretty comprehensive suite of electronics. So that's the question answered, although I don't really feel like being that flattering towards Suzuki, because I'm still upset at them for ditching their MotoGP effort at such short notice. Quite why such recent world champions don't have a sponsor to cover much of the costs, Repsol Honda, Monster Yamaha, Red Bull KTM, anyone? It's beyond me. Whomever is responsible for that gargantuan marketing fail should be subject to a facial burnout from the MotoGP riders on a race-by-race basis until the problem is solved. Anyway, on that slightly abusive note, that's it for this episode. See you again next week on The Bike Show. Cheers for now.